Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. For today's video I am going to be continuing on my Accepting Fate novel. We are today going to be reading through chapters 4, 5 and 6. As normal, I will mention a couple of things before we get started. The first one being that if you wish to share this in any way, you're more than welcome to, just please credit me. And also, this novel will talk in quite deep detail about mental health, self-harm, miscarriage, and some other quite challenging topics for some people. So if you think that you are going to be triggered by anything like that, of course, do not listen to Accepting Fate. There is a lot of that in this, and I would not want to offend or upset anybody through my work. I would just like to raise awareness. Also, if you did miss chapters 1, 2 and 3, the link to it will be in the description box below, along with all of my other creative writing stuff, so you guys can go and check it out if you want to. But for now, let's carry on with chapter 4, which is called Taking Up an Unusual Hobby. Months flew by as the sun greeted each day and the moon waved goodbye to it. For me, the days had grown long and unbearable since the separation from George and the news of the loss of our child. My heart ached and longed for George to hold me in his arms and tell me things would be okay. This has never happened. I admit the sun greets me on a morning, and I wish that it wouldn't, as life has been so hard on me since last year. That's right, it has been almost an entire year since everything happened, and things have not gotten any easier for me. In actual fact, they have become worse. I know I can live without George, as much as I long for his touch. It is the loss of my baby girl Solace that I am struggling with. Although George never wished to name her before she was born, I have taken it upon myself to name our lifeless child Solace, a name I craved since I was younger, dreaming of becoming pregnant and being a mother. Solace is happiness in the time of sadness, hope in times of darkness and pain. She was the light at the end of the tunnel. I've become incredibly distant from my friends and family. Remember Gemma? I don't talk to her anymore. I don't want to talk to her anymore. She was there at the time of the news, hanging around like a bad luck charm on Friday the 13th. I have nightmares, when I actually can sleep of course, where I relive the moments the news broke out and the pain shot through me like a bullet in the heart. I have flashbacks of having to carry around my child for the rest of the pregnancy and dreaded thoughts of giving birth to Solace limp and lifeless. I cry every day and every night as I remember the doctors carrying her away the second she was born. Why I could not say goodbye to her, I do not know. I longed for the closure of goodbye and longed to kiss her tiny and fragile head and wished her well on her journey into the light. I feel guilt that I myself, as a supposed woman, has no ability to carry and give birth to a child and parent. Every afternoon at around 3, I hear children talking and laughing with their parents who have just greeted them from school, and I long for the chance to do the same. But what if she wasn't dead? Solace, I mean. I'm sure she still lives on, not just in my dark memory. But did it all really happen, or is my mind just mixed up, playing evil tricks on me? At this point in time, I'm not really sure. I mean, although I remember giving birth quite well, I don't remember much after that. I know the doctors took her, but maybe they simply took her to get cleaned up, and less than 10 minutes later after that they gave her back to me and I kissed her forehead and held her tiny hands. Perhaps she is just at nursery and I'm due to go pick her up soon. Me and George together as a family? I can't figure it all out. I wander into the room I had prepared for Solace over a year ago, my thoughts confused and not comprehensible. Was she still alive? Was she not? I just wasn't sure anymore. Solace, I asked, speaking gently and calmly, I glared at the wardrobes that had her clothes in. The toys were laid out on the floor, and of course the cot in which I was hoping she could be sleeping in. If she was not in this cot, I was sure she was at nursery. Or maybe she was spending time with George. Before I could bring myself to take a glance into the cot, I glared at the decorating in the room, a soft pink colour placed lovingly onto the wall behind the cot, and an off-white was dressing the walls around it. I take a second to admire my DIY skills. The entire room has a very vintage feel to it, exactly what I wanted for my baby girl. I had dreamt of this kind of room. Everything from the colours to the style of the furniture and the carpet colour. The room acts like a time capsule, and my mind flashes back to my time in here carefully decorating the room, the hours I spent creating the perfect place for Solace to sleep and spend time in. Something that would not just be suitable for her as a baby, but a room she could grow up in for many years. I close my eyes as I begin to walk closer to the cot and place my hands on the side of it. Please, 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 I whisper gently. Are you here for Mummy? My hands tap on the side of the cot as I open my eyes. Solace, I ask again. It took my eyes a few seconds to adjust, and as luck would have it, there she is, laying in the cot, glaring up at me. She was wearing a bright pink outfit with "I love my mummy" printed onto the front, and her bottoms were plain white. For her age, she didn't have much hair, only a small blonde section on the top of her head. Her angelic baby blue eyes were still staring at me as I was stood there admiring her, and I am sure a slight smile appeared on her lips. I held out my hand to hers and held it, just making sure I wasn't imagining all of this, before feeling the slight grip of her tiny hand on mine. My darling baby girl, I excitedly say as I go to pick her up. Part of me couldn't believe my eyes, but the other part knew she was here all along. I gently hugged into her as her head rested on my shoulder. A warm feeling began to come over me as I pulled out of the hug and just stared at her as her eyes were heavy. It was clear she was tired. I put her back into her cot and watched her eyes closed and her breathing was calm. I wrapped her up to make sure she wouldn't get cold as I quietly walked out of the room and left the door open slightly. After leaving the room, I could feel the warm feeling Solace had given me fade away into the distance, and I began to feel cold and tormented yet again. Despite just seeing her in the cot, I couldn't help but think something wasn't quite right. Did that really just happen? Is she really calmly sleeping just in that room? Or did I imagine the entire scene? I walked down the stairs of my home and wandered aimlessly into the kitchen and glanced into the fridge and cupboards, noticing there was not much food in for myself, but also no food for Solace. I knew I had to get out of the house. I had not been out for days, not even to take Solace for a nice stroll in her carrier. I needed to go to the supermarket. Chapter 5. The Strange Outing. As I gathered some of Solace's belongings and placed them into her pram, then quickly changed myself into some clothes appropriate for facing the public, I couldn't help but think about my life and just how much it had changed in recent months. I want so badly George leaving to be a sick and twisted nightmare. I know it is, deep down in my heart. I know I was just having some kind of strange dream, an unconscious horror. I know he loves both me and Solace. Leaving the house, I felt an uneasy feeling as I locked the door and made sure it was locked 3 times. Walking to the local supermarket felt like an eternity. Usually, it only took around 5 minutes maximum. I pushed the pram and gazed into Solace's eyes every 10 seconds before making sure I didn't run somebody over accidentally with the pram wheels. I became increasingly nervous and uncomfortable, noticing everyone walking by, staring at me, almost giving me death glares. One particular encounter with a lady particularly shocked me, as she seemed very excited to see Solace, and then glared into the pram, but when she saw her, she pulled a face of confusion, and her excitement faded. She looked back at me and simply walked away, as if she was unsure of what was happening, as if it was all a joke. I don't understand some people. Finally, I got to the supermarket and I felt my chest was tight and my heart beating fast and loud. All I wanted was to go in, get what I needed, and leave again. But I was suddenly deflated and in no mood for a public appearance. People staring and laughing, I could feel my face heat up, my vision became blurry, and I knew all I had to do, or all I wanted to do, was cry. I knew there was a reason why I didn't go out much. I quickly wandered around the shop, around the aisles, and throwing odd things into my shopping basket. I was still noticing people looking at Solace and laughing out the corner of my eyes, and tears began to roll down my cheeks. As I turned into the aisle with the milk down it, my eyes were drawn to some young teenagers who I had previously seen a few aisles back laughing at me and my baby girl. They soon noticed me, despite my best efforts not to be seen, and they shouted at the top of their voices, "Look! There's that creep that's been pushing around the plastic children's doll." With that, the small group of them burst into a fit of laughter, aimed directly at me. Time seemed to go slowly, but something inside me snapped. I didn't know what else to do, but I dropped the basket on the floor and just ran. I ran out of the store and back home away from everyone's thoughts and my own embarrassment. As I was running, I looked into the pram, and all of a sudden, something no longer seemed right. Solace wasn't moving. I couldn't see her chest slightly moving up and down. I realised something. She never cried, nor did she ever laugh. I got to my house out of breath and locked the door behind me, checking it was locked several times. I cried in Solace's room for a little while she was sat in her cot. I then went downstairs and simply sat on my couch in the front room. I wasn't sure what I was thinking or what I was really doing. All I knew was that everything was suddenly falling into place. Chapter 6. The Truth from an Outsider. Her mind tormented and teased her of what was and what was not. Cuts on her arms told the vicious story of a woman who, against all odds, conceived and then tragically lost. Her eyes had baggage, and her hair was tattered and unwashed. Katie was a mess. She could no longer understand what was real and what was simply her wild imagination, hungry for confusion and distress. I worry for her, and hope one day she will return to her former glory. I saw her in the supermarket, pushing around that lifeless doll in the pram, just like if it was the real deal. As we walked right past each other, she did not even know I was there, and I was looking right at her, hoping for some kind of reaction. However, she had her head down and looked upset. I feel sorry for her. Katie's once strong, unstoppable, and bright personality were completely destroyed by several ill decisions on Fate's part. Fate was cruel and unforgiving, acting like a powerful dictator, pushing and preying on the vulnerable. Was there some bad Katie had done in her life which she needed to face consequences for? As far as I know, Katie was an incredibly nice human being. I have known her for quite a while, but quite possibly she could have done wrong in her past. I mean, nobody's perfect after all. Either way though, fate was not giving her a rest. Did she really deserve all of this? My heart begged for things to brighten up for Katie once more, and as Katie sat down after both feeding Solace and putting her to sleep, I watched on from outside her front room window for a little while. She could not see me, but I could definitely see her. I could see her in her unusual ways, trying to get on with life despite what it was throwing at her. I could see the pain in her eyes and the tiredness in her body language. She sat there glaring into nothing in total silence, clearly wondering where life was taking her. All of a sudden, she gets up from the couch and goes upstairs. And just as I was going to stop weirdly staring into her front room window, she returns to the room, this time with her baby doll in her arms. She was rocking the fake baby back and forth and attempting to comfort it, despite it not making any noise or moving. At this moment, I debated knocking on the door and refusing to leave until she opened up and spoke to me. And although I wasn't 100% on the matter, I thought it was worth a try. I needed my friend back. I needed her to get help. I slowly walked over to Katie's front door and gave it a quick knock. Not too loud, so it would frighten her, but not too quiet that she wouldn't hear anything. And after waiting a few seconds, I heard the door unlock, and Katie slowly but surely opened the door with the doll still in her arms. I could immediately tell she'd been crying, as her eyes were red and slightly swollen, and for a few seconds it was silent between us, and I wasn't sure if she knew who I was. Then, although slightly cracked and quiet, Katie spoke. "Gemma, is that you?" she stuttered at me. I nodded my head and replied, "Yes, it's me. I've been so worried about you. I saw you in the supermarket not long ago and you just seemed so nervous and worried. I wanted to check on you, make sure you were okay." The second I finished my sentence, she lunged at me and wrapped her arms around me tightly, dropping Solace on the floor in the process. She burst into tears yet again. "Please help me, please," she pleaded. "She's fake. Solace is fake. I just wanted to be a mum. I thought she was real, but she's just a doll." So that is chapters 4, 5 and 6 finished for you guys. I do hope you enjoyed. The final video on accepting fate will be uploaded shortly, and that will be the end of it. So I do hope you've enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave this video a thumbs up. If you're new here, click on that subscribe button, and I hope to see you guys in my next video.